Welcome to District 3A, Minnesota House Candidate Forum. My name is Joe Wisey. I'm a local business owner and I've lived here for about 15 years. Really thrilled to be here as I'm looking out at what is a really nice turnout. I was just thinking, like, we're all here for the same reason. This is really where the rubber starts to meet the road with actual direct representation to the wider world out of our little town and this thing that we care about. And so I'm thrilled that you're all here. We're going to have a nice night. One of the first things I'm supposed to ask is that everybody puts their phone on silent, please. A lot of you are moving. That's good. Okay. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how this is set up, and then we're going to turn it over to the actual questioning. As we're asking the candidates to be respectful and civil with each other, we would ask the same thing from all of you as people are answering questions. I don't expect to have to do my job, so hopefully I don't have to. So, okay. So this is sponsored by the Ely branch of the AAUW and the Ely Rotary. Thanks so much for the candidates, Roger Straba, Rich True, and Harley Droba for their willingness to participate. These guys have, real busy days and they're out there, and we're a sizable but not entirely their chunk of what they have to do. And so for them to spend their time in our little town as part of representing us, we really appreciate that. So, yeah. Also joining me on stage tonight is Jeff Sundell and Lucy Soderstrom. They're going to be our questioners. And with the probably most thankless job is the two in the front here, Carolyn Owens and Kurt Soderberg are going to be our timers. So this is not a debate. This is a candidate forum, which is a different way of setting it up. And in the forum, the candidate will answer an individual question and not have a back and forth with other candidates. The questions have been submitted by the public and then finalized by a committee from AAUW and the Ely Rotary. Questions will cover topics related to the role of the Minnesota representative, attitudes towards some of the topics that will be faced in your position, your vision for District 3A, and how you'll manage communication with your constituents if elected. To begin, each candidate will give a 90-second opening statement. Following opening statements, there will be several rounds of questions. In each round, each candidate will be asked one question and have a minute and a half to answer it. After all candidates have answered their question in each round, candidates will be given 30 seconds to add to their answer or comment on any of the questions asked of other candidates. And then at the end of the evening, it will conclude with a 90-second closing statement from each candidate. Timers will alert you to time remaining, and you need to stop when the time is up. So can you give us an example of what that'll look like as things are counting down? There we go. There you go. That's a good system. Yeah, again, please don't make me do my job. Okay. I'll say this, you won't do it, but I'll say it. Candidates who disregard time limits may be limited on their subsequent time allotments. Candidates will be expected to answer the question they are given, but do not have to fill the entire time allotted to the answer. I don't expect that to happen. Okay. So, I'm going to turn it over now to our questioners, and we will proceed.
We'll start off the evening with a 1.5 minute opening statement from each candidate. We'll first hear from Roger Scraba.
Just to let everyone know, I've practiced this 100 times, and I'm at 139. So if you're going to dock me for 9 seconds, I'm going to let you know I've tried to cut it. So, good evening. Thank you to the sponsors, and thanks for putting on the event. I've been elected to 3 terms on the City Council of Ely and 4 terms as mayor. 2 years ago, I was elected to the Minnesota Legislature. I've earned the trust of voters to represent all the people in northern Minnesota. My Democratic opponent stated after our last forum that I didn't know if I was a Republican or a Democrat. Newsflash, I represent all people of northern Minnesota and have proven it with bipartisan votes on the House floor. I was born and raised in Ely by working parents. My father was a diesel mechanic at Reserve Mining. My mother worked as a cook at the Ely Hospital. I graduated from Ely High School and went on to North Dakota State University in Fargo, earned a degree in construction management, minor in political science. After college, I enlisted in the U.S. Army National Guard and Reserve, spent 9 years as a scout and infantryman. I worked for Colesbury Granite Company for a year and a half. They weren't ready for me in the real world, so I moved back to Ely and started my life as a wilderness canoe fishing guide, which I still do to this day. I'm running because northern Minnesota needs someone to represent our values and way of life. The metro and other areas of Minnesota are just as unique and wonderful, but having lived here for over 60 years, I understand the people of northern Minnesota. I used to be a Democrat. I left it, but the DFL left me about 20 years ago. I still care about people and want the district I represent to grow and prosper, and feel after all my life experience I can represent all the people of District 3A. Vote to re-elect Roger Scraba on or before November 5th. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Rich True.
Hello everyone. For those that don't know me, that haven't met me outdoor knocking, my name is Rich True. This year I actually am running my first election as a forward independent. I believe that we need to have less of a tug of war when it comes down at the state. And to show you a little bit about my history, I was born along the North Shore. I went to Two Rivers High School, graduated there, top 10% of my class. I then attended college to get the first bachelor's degree in my family at AAUW, LA, out in California. I had the unique pleasure and privilege to have lived in urban and rural areas and understand the divides and the different solutions for those areas and how one may not always be applicable to the other. Throughout my life, though, I've had multiple careers. It started first and foremost as a union member within the SAG-AFTRA and the Society of American Fight Directors, followed by becoming a sommelier and restaurant consultant for the high fine dining restaurants out in the Southern California area. And then it followed from a hobby that I turned into during COVID into my third career, which then became a digital media project manager. I know these are a lot of different things, but it's taught me a lot of different skills throughout my life. And thank you for having me today.
And now we'll hear from Harley Droba.
Hi everybody, my name is Harley Droba. I am the mayor of International Falls. I am the husband of my wife Amy and the father of my 18-year-old daughter Caitlin. I am the mayor of International Falls. In my time as being mayor, I ended up being appointed just before we went into a global pandemic. I ended up utilizing that as an opportunity because people were still coming up to International Falls to go to Canada. We found out that Canada was closed. Apparently, that was me as the mayor. I didn't really do it. But people were still coming up to International Falls, and we ended up having people that didn't have anywhere to stay. We reached out to a hotel. We ended up getting a new hotel in our community first year of the pandemic. Ended up getting 2 new hotels. That opened up an opportunity for contractors to be able to come to International Falls. We've gotten a new grocery store, 2 new gas stations, and next week we're opening up the first new apartment in International Falls in almost 50 years. I want to take a lot of the ideas that I have, because right now we're struggling in northern Minnesota with rural healthcare. That is the focus of my campaign, and I want to make sure that we have adequately funded ambulances and we have opportunities for healthcare in northern Minnesota, whether it's eye doctors, dentists, or just being able to have labor and delivery in northern Minnesota. I would greatly appreciate having more conversation with you guys afterwards, but again, I'm Harley Drobe and I look forward to this debate or this forum, and I appreciate the AAUW and Rotary for putting this on. Thank you.
Thank you. In our first round of questions, as with each round of questions, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer the question posed to them. Then, at the conclusion of the 3 questions, each candidate will be given 30 seconds to comment on anything discussed in this round. We'll begin with Roger Scraba. You have been in office for one term. What votes and legislation are you most proud of, and what has been your biggest frustration?
Thank you. The votes I'm most proud of is I voted for an environment bill that came through the first year in 2023. There were a lot of things in that bill. I sit on the Natural Resources and Environment Bill Committee, and there were a lot of things in there that really I wasn't sure if I could support in the end. And when it came up on the House floor, we spoke with the authors, and they convinced me that it was worth going into, so I voted for that. There were 31 projects in our district for that, on that bill alone. So it was very important to get that bill across. There were 3 Republicans that voted for that bill. It was a very partisan bill. So I'm someone that going to vote for my people, not for my ideals on everything. There are some things that I do represent, the majority that voted for me, that I have to hold true to. But the other bill is the bonding bill. It's something that I'm really proud of. It helped everyone in northern Minnesota. Between Senator Hochschild and myself, we got a fair amount of dollars in northern Minnesota, and it helped a lot. And as far as some frustration is when you're in a trifecta, it's really hard to get your voice heard because they don't have to hear it.
Rich True. Voting security has become a hot button topic among many district residents. What are your views on this topic?
Sorry, I did miss the first two.
Voting security.
So when it comes to voting security, for those that aren't familiar, one of the major, I guess you'd call it platform ideology is to get ranked choice voting amongst the people that run third parties. It allows for more options as well as voter security. When you have more than one person that you're ranking in order, 1 to 4 is who's your favorite and who's your least favorite, and everybody can do that with their favorite ice cream or pizza, so it's a pretty simple system. It's harder for machines, AI, and stuff to change the answers and that not be caught. So that, by just having that system, also provides that security while also giving more voting power to the average voter to make sure that their vote counts. If you vote for me in this election, a lot of people would consider that to be a spoiler candidate. I'm not running for president, so there's a lot more people that are up here that are independent that are willing to take that chance, and that is why I'm running. I've heard from them that they're sick of both of the parties and how things have always operated as normal, and they've given them second, third, and fourth chances. And a more independent, more inclusive multi-party system is going to provide that election security that everybody is worried about. I do believe that one of the overlooked legislations is to, when it comes to voting security, is to not allow guns in the polling place. I'm not anti-guns by any means, but there's no need for it in certain government buildings and polling places. For the most part, we have decent election security, and I would like to stop the stigma about homeless people, where you draw a picture and then that's good enough for your resident. I know a lot of people that live in RVs and stuff, and it's not quite as black and white as that might seem.
The final question this round goes to Harley Droba. In this rancorous political environment, it has been more difficult for our politicians to work cooperatively for the common good. Can you provide examples of when you have been able to successfully work across the aisle?
Well, it's interesting, being mayor, we don't necessarily have partisan politics, so we don't work across the aisle. I can tell you, though, that we were working on a handful of projects at the state level, and I was able to testify on a lead line replacement bill. Coincidentally, right in Rogers, environmental area. And the thing it is, we have to find common ground of what makes sense. I've had situations with that on our city council as well. Obviously, there's not any one thing that's going to change a community, but we have to have conversations, sit down with the other council members, and having good conversation with the residents when it comes to things that are going to be affecting them specifically. So we just need to have good conversations. I don't have a specific example because, again, I'm not in that particular role, but I have worked with so many people that have moved our community forward. So I'm just going to end there.
In this initial round of questioning, we've talked about candidate accomplishments, voting security, and bipartisanship. Each candidate now has up to 30 seconds to respond to any of those questions or to further clarify their own answer. Roger, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I've reached across on a lot of bills with Democrats and made some pretty good friends with Democrats. One of the early ones was the bonding bills. We're trying to work together. The chair of bonding, Chair Fooley, great person. I love the way he runs meetings, and we got a good rapport going together. We travel around the state looking at projects. So I work with different issues because we get to know each other, and I think that's important, building those relationships. As far as the ranked choice voting, that's right, 30 seconds.
And Rich?
I'd just like to take this moment, even though I am not currently in office, I have served on multiple committees, part of the neighborhood councils when I was out in Los Angeles for half of my adult life. I am 33 to give you perspective on that. Those included Plum Transit, multi-use outdoor spaces, things of that nature. I also founded the student government at my college, which did not have one, and there was a breakdown between faculty and students. And I also am a founding constitutional member of the Forward Party that will be an official party here in Minnesota next year, but is already a national party. Then I'll leave it there. Thank you.
And for my statement, I just want to say that Rich was asked a question regarding voting and voting security. I would just highly suggest and encourage everyone to utilize the early voting and mail-in voting this year as an opportunity to make sure that your voice is heard.
Thank you. In this round of questions, each candidate will have a minute and a half to answer their question. Then each candidate will be given 30 seconds to comment on anything discussed in this round of questioning. This is for Rich True. The mental health needs of children have increased due to factors such as residual effects of the pandemic and the pressures of social media. Do you have thoughts on what the legislature might do to address some of these issues?
One thing I've been mulling over the last 2 years, and this requires a lot of technical know-how and such, but I think the government can work towards this, which is finding basically an airplane mode for schools when it comes to the social media apps and such. Like, you can still use, we're not going to not pull out our calculator in our pocket that's attached to our phone. But so finding a middle ground to a lot of these things, and I'm not saying some centrist, ineffective type solutions. I'm talking about real, innovative, outside the box, open-minded thinking that is lost a lot of the time when you're just seeing juxtaposed positions from one party to the other. And you'll see a theme tonight. That's what I'm here about. That's why I'm running, is that there are more ideas than what is always just screamed at in media or on somebody's Twitter feed. Beyond that, I'm part of a neurodivergent community. I have a high level of ADHD, and providing access and accessibility, particularly lately to those drugs which have been fakely exacerbated an issue by ICE about too many drugs coming over the border, when most of the time it ends up being Americans that do so, and they say there was an unexcessive amount of recreational use of things like Adderall. And so that has put people like myself and others at risk of having a decline in life, mental health, and increased suicide rates when those types of partisan policies end up then hurting directly those individuals in which you're trying to say that you're helping.
And for Harley, what is your position on the sale of school trust lands within the boundary waters, and why do you feel that way?
So that's kind of a hot button issue that's came up very recently. So I think that the school trust lands, I know that there's been conversation about being able to trade those lands. There's conversation about being able to sell them. And I would say that it makes sense to sell those lands, put the money into the fund for the school trust. With that being said, I don't know if the dollar amount that we have is a fair, equitable amount for the amount that, or for the length that that has been held. So I think that there may be some negotiation that we could do to make a higher dollar value for that, because it's important for our communities to be able to have those funds to go into education. So I believe the number is 50 million. If we could get more monies for that, I think that would definitely benefit our area communities. And that's where I'm at.
Roger. Minnesota has set a goal to become carbon neutral by 2040. Do you support that decision? And what strategies might you champion to move toward achieving that goal?
I did not support that position, and I still don't support that position. I think it's unattainable, and it was foolish to do it. I think there's a better way to do it, where we all sit down, like the Forward Party, like Rich said, that we could have had a great discussion on how to get to that. It's not that we're opposed to trying to do that, it's just unattainable. Either wind and solar do not generate the amount of energy that the state of Minnesota needs. It's a fact. It's just proven. It's proven every day. We don't have enough land to put enough solar in. The wind power is non-reliable. So there's a lot of things that I don't support for it. I would like to work with them to include nuclear, to include more natural. We have a lot of iron up here, and if we could get battery storage with iron batteries, I'm all for it. Let's sit down and look, try to find a better way to work together. I just think the way it came was not the right way to do it, and it's sad, because I think a lot of us want to work on that and start to phase out the fossil fuels. I'm not opposed to phasing them out, but just do it in a reliable manner.
In this round, we talked about the mental health needs of children, becoming a carbon neutral state, and the potential sale of school trust lands. We'll begin our 30-second comments with Rich.
So there's a lot to say, but I'll try to be fast about it. When it comes to the carbon neutrality, I agree that it's currently, in the viewpoint, unobtainable as it is. I am for it, though. I'm an extremely green person, love recycling, but a lot of the times when it comes to these technologies, we don't even have mechanisms to recycle panels that, after 15 years, they get rid of. They're high, high element metals that you get from China. We don't have a supply locally. That makes us insecure. Same thing with the 12-year lifespan of wind turbines made out of plastic. We don't have a way to recycle them. I believe that nuclear energy is the future. I think there's a huge cultural misunderstanding around it.
You talk fast.
30 seconds.
And you, Natalie?
So a couple of thoughts that I have. The mental health situation, that's the number one thing I'm hearing when I'm up in Grand Portage, Grand Marais, some of the areas that are underserved. People are concerned with the kids that are in the school, and I think that we have to definitely look at mental health as part of that rural health conversation. As for carbon neutral, as I understand it, a lot of the utilities, power companies, they see that it's something that they can do in the time frame, and my time's over.
In this round of questions, each candidate will again have a... Oh, Roger.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, Roger, you don't get one.
Just really quick, the mental health, it's really not the dollars that we're having trouble with, it's people working. It's hard to find people that want to get in that field and work. It's so important that we get young people to get in this field. School trust land, 50 million doesn't go to us, it goes to the school trust land. If you're a large school in the metro area, you get more of the money. I want that land to be used by communities in this area for logging, mining, recreation, whatever we need to do it, and let the state manage it. Thank you.
Now we're on to the next round of questioning, in which you'll again have a minute and a half to answer the question posed to you, and then 30 seconds to comment on anything discussed. We'll start this time with Harley Droba. Many voters will be making their candidate decisions based on the issue of reproductive rights. Would you vote to enshrine women's health care rights, including abortion, or would you support a ban of some type in the state And if so, at what point during pregnancy?
I think everyone has the right to make decisions for their own body, and I think that that's one of the things that we have to focus on in this entire election. We have a candidate that's at this table that has voted against reproductive rights at the state level, but on his, and he says in other forums that we've had that he's for the right to choose, and I really struggle when it says one thing on his website and it says another thing out of his mouth. I'm willing to stand for reproductive rights for the women that need them. That's not my choice. I don't think that we need to have anybody in the government in the office with people making decisions that are very, very difficult in their time.
Roger Scrubba. Adequate affordable housing is an issue across the state. What role does the legislator play in resolving this problem, and what have you done or plan to do to work toward a solution?
I believe that's the number one issue in every community that I've door knocked and have been to. Housing is a issue throughout the state, not just in this district. I voted with a couple of housing bills in the legislature to put money aside for low-income folks to get more money available for homeless people to help get them housing. The solution, the IAAUW, right now, I think we put $650,000, I can't remember how many thousands of dollars that we're putting in for housing to get folks to come to the table. Our biggest problem that we have that I still want to work on when re-elected is trying to find developers that will come to northern Minnesota and develop properties. That's our biggest Achilles heel. We can't get folks to come up here to invest the time and the energy to build the housing. Our city has a 30-unit apartment trying to get built, and it's just trying to find those people that want to come up here and work on it. And I can tell you, every community right now in Grand Marais, we're working on some projects. IAAUW gave some money. So we're going to try to help all the communities, White Lakes, I can go down the list. Everyone's having trouble with housing. So I'm going to try to keep working on it, not only just to offer dollars, but support.
And a question for Rich True. It can be more difficult for an independent to be heard in the legislature. If elected, what strategies will you use to ensure that you are an effective representative of the constituents you serve?
I don't say this all the time, but that's a great question because I do get that all the time. Now, I actually see it differently. I think a lot of the independent people that this question might be poignant towards is people that ended up being a part of a party, abandoning it and calling themselves independent. You can think of Joe Manchin as one such person, or Kirsten Sinema. That leaves a lot of bad blood, puts blood in the water, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. For me, I'm running straight up independent. Forward Party allows me to do that. And you can kind of be like, let's call it a bipartisan deal broker for the sakes of a term. A lot of the times, I know the Republicans or the Democrats have a hard time working across the aisle because either their party tells them they shouldn't, their charter, and at the end of the day, when you have a party that's telling you to go one way, they're of course going to try to challenge you in the primary and endorse somebody else. And the most, people like yourselves are the ones that always come out and vote in the primaries, and those are a lot of the times it can be like the super loyalists to the party, and they're going to go with that endorsement, unfortunately. So I don't think it's going to be as difficult as one might seem at the House. I think a lot of my innovative, new age ideas that are not so fanciful as some might label as progressive, but are rooted in reality and very pragmatic, can actually be a breath of fresh air down there. And I get along with almost everyone. I always leave a room on good terms and never bad.
Thank you. In this round, we talked about reproductive health, housing shortages, and how to be an effective member of the House. Each candidate now has 30 seconds to comment on any topic covered in this round of questions. Harley.
I just want to talk about housing really quick. I do think that that is very important in this district, and there are areas that are not in the IRRB. International Falls happens to be one of them, so housing is another issue that we have in areas of this district that doesn't have the luxury of having the IRRB. We need to make sure that we are looking at opportunities for housing, and that's going to give opportunities for rural health care. Doctors don't have a place to move to. We have people that want to move into communities.
Yeah, just go back on the housing, and the mayor has the point. When you're outside the IRRB, it's harder to get funding for those housing projects, Little Fork, Big Falls. These communities that are not in IRRB they need us. They need us legislators to work on it. Trying to get the independent to be heard. I have a 68% CPAC rating, Conservation Political Action Committee. Most Republicans have anywhere from 85 to 95. I have a 68. So I do work across the aisle.
Now to just touch back on what Roger just said, working across the aisle is easy, but again, at the end of the day, there's a lot of politics that people are sick of that come from the parties. I'm not here to dump on any one individual person. My issue is the same issue I think a lot of you have, which is the two-party system. But housing is a huge thing, and I think we need, again, to be outside the box. We need to, instead of just giving subsidies to companies to beg them to come up here and build stuff for us, why don't we spend that money from the legislature that we get to invest in our people who can do a lot of these jobs, give them maybe a little bit more training if they need to get up to standard, and make co-op businesses for the locals.
Thank you. In this round of questions, each candidate will have a minute and a half to answer their question. Then each candidate will be given 30 seconds to comment on anything discussed in this round of questioning. This is for Roger. He voted against placing a resolution on the ballot that would add an equal rights amendment to the state constitution. What is your reasoning for not allowing the voters to decide this issue?
The original bill for equal rights amendment was to give women the more power, more strength in society. This bill lacked that. It didn't just do women, it took, it moved transgenderism up above it. And it was like, you know, is this society ready for that right now? I didn't think it was. Some of the things we wanted to put on the Equal Rights Amendment was age discrimination. They didn't want to include age discrimination. We're like, why not? It's discrimination. It should be part of an Equal Rights Amendment. They wouldn't take any amendment. It had to be their bill or no bill. And it was like really frustrating. I saw after the session was over, I saw Representative Finke's rationale why she wanted the ERA, and that's what scared me. And I'm glad that it didn't pass the way it is. I think it needs to include transgender people, but not focus just on them. I think it needs to be more inclusive to some of the issues that Republicans wanted to put on that bill, and that's giving more focus to women and more focus to age discrimination.
Rich, what do you see as your highest priority in serving the needs of your constituents? What would you do first?
So this actually ties into the main reason I was running. Was earlier on in the year, a lot of people were disenfranchised about who they were going to be able to vote for president back when Biden was still in the race. People felt disenfranchised. They might have felt hopeless even, and that things could never change. Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
What do you see as your highest priority in serving the needs of your constituents, and what would you do first?
So a lot of people were telling me that their needs in the area were the fact that people were just slowly moving out of town. We hear that we need housing, but a lot of the times that is just out of affordability and the issues that we have around living wage. I'm not saying that there's not a shortage of housing. I mean, a lot of the housing, 35% I believe in Lake County, are second homes, and that puts the property tax up on others. I think that we need to improve the amenities and not forget that you need to keep people here too, not just invite people to the area. Those amenities being, fiber optic cabling, cheap electricity, that, the Midwest will be an exporter of electricity one day because most of the wind and solar tend to be there. They're not in like the city of Manhattan. Going along with what else the constituents have been telling me about is just the sheer fact that it's not the same as it was 20 years ago. It's not a Make America Great Again speech, but it's a lot of seeing a lack of community, and those things have diverged from less church attendance. So let's bring more community options like YMCAs with the already established amenities like the high school building projects that we have to bring more things together with adults, children, and our senior citizens.
Harley, rural health care is a priority issue in our district. What plans do you have to improve access to services across the district?
It is. It's the most important thing that I'm hearing at the doors as I've been going through this process. 18 years ago when my daughter was born, she was born in International Falls. There's no area that you can have delivery and labor in District 3A. So we went backwards there. She also, by coincidence, needed to go by ambulance from International Falls to Duluth before she got on a helicopter to fly to the cities. She's fine. She's 18 years old. She made it. But I'm scared that we have young families that are growing, coming and living in District 3A in Ely, Grand Portage, Grand Marais, all over this district. They can't have a baby. We don't have access to, easy access to dentists and optometry. We have to take a look at that, whether that is how we're working with the universities to get people to come to rural Minnesota for doctors and to be able to provide that health care. But it's a bigger issue than just that. We also want to make sure that we have daycares available so that as these people are there, their child is going to daycare. To make sure that we have good education so they want to be there. To make sure that we have housing so that the doctors are going to be coming to rural Minnesota. It's definitely needed in our district, and that's what I want to do. That's what I want to focus on. And that's why I'm here today, is because we need to have those options for the folks in northern Minnesota.
Thank you. In this round, we talked about the Equal Rights Amendment, rural health care, and candidate action priorities. We'll begin our 30-second comments with Roger.
As far as rural health care, Grand Marais, Minnesota doesn't have an emergency room doctor. So what you do when you check in there, you walk in, and they pay a company to have a screen, and it's all online. We're going to see more and more of that just because of the issues that we're seeing. It's unaffordable the way it is. Dare I say that we go to a one-payer system. I think we have to start talking about it in rural areas. If we don't talk about it, we're being remiss. We can't keep going the way we're going. It's not working. It's not working at all.
Rich.
To touch on the healthcare part, I do obviously believe in a one-payer system. I mean, you cut out the administration staff that is there to help negotiate on the doctor's behalf with the insurance companies who are telling you no even before they look up to see if it's covered. I think that we should take EMS services public and ban them from being a private company use. I'm not a communist or anything. I just believe that it's an essential service like a fire department or the police force. Now, when it comes to the equal rights amendments, I do believe that trans are not being over-focused. I think they're being heard about more because it hasn't been talked about a lot, and I'll pass it on.
Harley, it's your turn.
I just want to say that Roger just pointed out that we're going down a road where we have to consolidate and make things more centristic. I struggle with that. We need to be in rural Minnesota. We need to have these rural healthcare access. We need to be able to adequately fund our ambulances. And I do agree with Rich 100%. We need to make sure that ambulances are an essential service and designated by the state, just like fire and police. You guys don't know what it's like to look in his eyes when he holds up that paper.
In this round of questions, each candidate will have a minute and a half to answer their question. Then each candidate will be given 30 seconds to comment on anything discussed. We'll start with Rich True this time. Do you support the existing 20-year mining ban in the headwaters of the boundary waters? Why or why not?
Well, first I'd like to get rid of a misconception. A lot of people have been thinking that when they see and hear about the ban on mining, that we're talking about mining that's strictly deep in the boundary waters and not like near the existing cities and mines that we have today. Now, I'm not saying that right now I'm a super advocate for the copper nickel mining, because that's where we know this question is going. That being said, I do not support a outright ban. I think we need to take a more holistic approach to being ready before we start the permit process for this. I feel bad for the company that was said, okay, you can start the process for the copper nickel mining, and you know what, they didn't have the ducks in the row. Most of these policies are outdated. The helium that was found in my county of Lake County, up near Babbitt, we don't have legislation on the books for that. That was something I talked to Rich Stay about immediately back in January, when they said that they were going to take something they accidentally found about a decade ago and actually start to utilize it. Was that we don't have laws on the books for liquid or gas-based extraction of resources, just solid. And yes, they're classified differently. So I think that there's nothing wrong with extraction-based resources. I believe in lumbering. I have an uncle who does lumber and sawmill stuff. We can do cross-laminated lumber. We've fixed the problems and understood how to fix, when we deforest something to preserve some of the ecosystem and then plant back those trees. I think we have learned a lot from our mistakes, but I also believe that there should be excessive redundancies in processes that we don't know if we're going to approve them, but mainstream it at all possible.
Isn't that scary when he holds that sign up?
It's like a little stare off.
Over to Harley. If elected, what strategies will you employ to remain accessible and responsive to your constituents?
In the time that I've been running this campaign, I've been to every city in this district, and I'm telling you what, I love International Falls. It's my hometown, and I absolutely love it, but I'm falling in love with every single community for a different reason, and it's a great opportunity to represent this. I think that it should be a great honor for Roger to be able to go to all of these communities and meet with people. I think we need to have more town halls, more conversations, and just being able to meet with folks. I also would love to take more phone calls. As I've been running this campaign, I give out my phone number, and I don't get a lot of phone calls. I do get a handful of emails, and I do return all of those as fast as I possibly can. I think that that's really what the goal of a representative is. You don't have to agree all the time, but you need to have your voices heard. And that is one of the major reasons why I'm running this. International Falls is the largest city in this district. And I don't feel as if we have been heard from our state representatives, specifically on the rural healthcare situation and our ambulances. Multiple times we were told that he wasn't able to meet with us, came for other issues in our community, and the final forum that we had, he told me he didn't have to meet with us because he was already fixing it. So I think that that's really important, is having those conversations with your constituents.
Over to Roger Scraba. What do you see as the greatest rural healthcare deficits, and if re-elected, what legislation or actions could we count on you to sponsor in order to resolve the problem of rural healthcare?
Okay, is that different from the other question? They seem the same. Maybe I'm hearing it wrong. Rural healthcare deficits. I can use, the ambulance, we put just about 30 million into, I think it was 30 million into ambulance. Our communities in District 3A, we got 3 million total for everyone, hundreds of thousands per one. It doesn't solve the problem. All it did was, the original DFL bill was going to be 100 and some million to make everyone whole, but the governor only went to 30 million. So we used what we could there to solve the problem. There's a working group right now going to the federal government to ask for more Medicare, Medicaid dollars to help pay for the ambulance. I think what we need to do in a rural situation is what we're doing now. We're working together with other districts like Babbitt, Tower, Ely, rather than trying to be alone. and sitting down together, hired a consultant to work to solve this problem, because communities need communities, and when we all help each other, we're better. So I'm looking at to solve it, to be a peacemaker, to make this thing work.
Thank you. In this round, we talked about the federal ban on mining in the headwaters of the boundary waters, strategies to be responsive to voters, and rural healthcare deficits. Each candidate now has 30 seconds to comment on any of those topics or to further clarify their own answer. We'll begin with Rich.
So when it comes to being responsive to the constituents if elected and have that honor, would be that there needs to be a huge amount of transparency that isn't just through a party or an outdated campaign website. There needs to be, you don't have to be AOC, you don't have to live stream on Instagram or anything, but at least a place for people to check out what the status of things are. I know government websites are not always the most up-to-date and easy to read, and it looks like you're reading a law book, but I do believe we need to do a much better process, and I'm very much looking forward to being able to do that.
I just want to touch on the ambulance situation. So the money that did come in didn't even cover the deficit that we took last year. And that's happening all over this district. Medicare, Medicaid does not pay enough money to run the ambulance services based off of the age that we have of our average ages for people that are living in our district. Ambulances need to be considered an essential service in the state of Minnesota. That would give them additional funding through the state, and the Metro isn't having the problem because of
Roger.
The district that I represent has 15 school districts. I get about 150 emails a day when I'm in session. The district is 11,700 square miles. It's larger than 9 states in the union. It is difficult to communicate with everyone all at once. I got 67,000 miles in my car, driving around to all these communities, trying to keep in touch with everyone, going to St. Paul, not complaining. I'm just saying, if you don't hear from someone right away, there's something else at play. Could we do a better job? Sure. I'm not going to argue that.
Thank you. In this round of questions, each candidate will have a minute and a half to answer their question. Then each candidate will be given 30 seconds to comment on anything discussed in this round of questioning. Harley, gun safety versus Second Amendment rights are frequent topics of political discourse. Do you have thoughts about what additional safety measures make sense in Minnesota?
Wow, Second Amendment in northern Minnesota having this conversation. Huh, weird. So I'm prior military. I served my country in the United States Army. I did satellite communications. I carried a weapon for 4 years. The reality is, we're northern Minnesota. We have guns. We need to make sure that we're doing them safe or utilizing them safely. There are things that the DFL have had in the legislature last year that I didn't agree with. I also think that people should have the right to bear arms. I think that is what constitutionally we have, and that's where we need to be. I'm not an avid hunter. I'll be the first to admit that. But I also believe that all the folks that do have rifles and shotguns and everything that you want to be in northern Minnesota, you should have that right. I definitely am concerned on situations that are happening in schools and gun safety. I think that there's definitely conversations that we need to have. However, as for, it's one of the toughest things because I truly believe in the Second Amendment, and that's going to be one of the toughest things that I have to deal with when I get elected, because I definitely believe that people should have the right to have a weapon.
Roger. Health plans that offer physical and mental coverage are now required to provide medically necessary gender-affirming care. What additional action should be taken by the legislature to protect the rights of LGBTQI+ residents?
I'll sit down and support more. I don't know what other rights. I think we're pretty adequate as far as looking at how we support people LGBTQ, the question is kind of throwing me because I think we're doing a pretty good job, and the legislature just went through it. The Democrats had a majority, and we tightened up anything that had any, how do I say it, any ambiguity. They did a good job of fixing those issues. One of the things I've not struggled with, but I look at how our society, not 10 years ago, 12 years ago, was voting on gay marriage. And everyone was like, gosh, how can we do that? What are we going to do? And I'm like, what? Why is that so hard? What is so hard about that issue? People are different. Accept their differences and move on. Accept them. I do. You can come to my office, and I really don't, I don't care what you do or what, it's your life. Enjoy it. So I guess I don't know how it would help it. If they want to discuss it more, I'm all open to discussing it more to help if they need more help.
Thank you. Rich, last winter, there was historically bad snow cover with a negative impact on our area economy. Additionally, the warmer temperature risks spreading harmful invasive species, which in the past were killed off by the cold. How can the state do more to address climate change pollution, and how can you support our businesses when they are hurt by climate change?
Well, obviously I can state the platitude that everybody's suffering across the country, across the world when these things happen, and we now have to find new methods of dealing with new normals, new, whether it's bookworm or whatever it might be. I mean, in the near future, we have to worry about the permafrost unthawing and releasing old pathogens that our bodies have not had the ability to adapt to over years, like we have with things like the flu, which started out as the Spanish flu. Now, going beyond that, just here at home, there needs to be much more partnership between the Fed and state DNR and the natural resources at the federal level to actually combat these issues. I know a lot of locals have been pushing back against the certain federal services about how they're going about these things, not communicating to the locals, and them being scared that they're seeing a fire across their lake after a controlled burn got out of control. I'm not saying you shouldn't do a controlled burn. It's actually one of the best methods to go about saving a forest, because we put out all the fires, and if you don't have that, the nutrients doesn't go back into the soil. But again, going back to the main point, we need to do a better forward thinking, and as much as you can, future-proof, so that when things come up, we need to be more proactive rather than just reactive. And it may seem like we've been reacting and not getting things done for a long time, so let's actually get somebody down there who is willing to do research about how to fix things now and in the near future.
Thank you. In this round, we talked about gun safety, LGBTQI+ rights, and lessons the impact of climate change has on our businesses. Each candidate now has 30 seconds to comment on any topic covered in this round of questions, starting with Harley.
I just gotta say, Roger struggled with the transgender question about as bad as I struggled with the gun safety question. I think the reality is we need to allow people to live their lives in Minnesota, and we don't need to, and specifically on that, that's why we need to have the ERA in place that allows everyone to have equal rights. I think that is incredibly important, and I think it's a statement for all of the Minnesotans that we have, that everyone has the right for equal rights.
Roger.
The gun safety and gun rights, gun violence needs to be looked at. We need to work better at it. I'm all for supporting it. I supported two of the laws, the red flag law and the straw purchase law. I didn't vote for them because the Democrats added things to those two issues. If they would have left them alone, standing alone, I think it's good laws to have. I don't want to see crazy people, and how we define crazy is different, with guns. And straw purchases, if you want to purchase a gun for someone and they commit a crime, you're just as guilty as them. I would have supported both of them.
And now Rich.
Now, personally, I think both of those questions are relatively easy. Guns and affirming gender care. A lot of people don't know, And so a lot of people just kind of put down when it comes to the transgender things. A lot of people don't understand the difference between sex and gender. I'm bisexual. I hate that I have to actually tell people that, and I have to consider whether or not you're going to judge me for being that. But at the end of the day, yes, everybody, and I do believe Minnesota is fortunate in the fact that I think most people love each other and are not going to just shame you or judge you for being who you are. But as much support as they need, and as that develops, we just need to continue that dialogue.
Thank you. In this round of questions, each candidate will again have 90 seconds to answer their question. Then each candidate will be given 30 seconds to comment on anything discussed. This time we'll start with Roger Scraba. In 2023, the legislature passed restrictions on PFAS in certain products. But all research so far has shown that toxic PFAS contamination is already impacting us through drinking water, tainted products, and even coming in through air pollution. What should state government do to assure that well water and municipal water systems are not contaminated with PFAS and other toxic substances?
Well, being on the Environment Committee, I saw a lot of PFAS legislation and issues. The city of Duluth wastewater bypasses a lot of PFAS into Lake Superior, so anyone using that water is going to transfer. We have some filtering to filter them out. The best way is to eliminate them. However, to eliminate all PFAS, all of them, leaves us very vulnerable in some areas, i.e. the fire protection. They are working on a new way to solve that. Our clothing have PFAS in them, and we're trying to find ways to get rid of the PFAS in our environment. St. Louis County has supported a bonding bill to get St. Louis County to build a collection of all the landfills that need to be replaced. They want to bring it all to one area and then leach the PFAS out and then manage them from there. Right now, I believe it's NSP or XL, they burn PFAS and they're going through the study on how to do it. It's a very, I will work to help get rid of these things. I'm on that side of the aisle that will, let's work and find this problem because it needs to be fixed. And we know it's there and it does not help us.
This question is for Rich True. There's conversation at both a state and a federal level about what the minimum wage should be set at. What minimum wage would you support in Minnesota? Or do you feel there are other more effective ways to address the economic needs of our citizens?
Sure, there's a few points I'll make before I say a number. Now, the first one being that we currently have a different wage, minimum wage, when it comes to people who work in high school, so children under the age 18. I worked at a Culver's. Before that, you mow lawns and stuff like that, but you get paid a little less. But that's not a great thing. We've seen it in other states actually be abused. I don't know to what extent, if at all, it is abused here, but I don't think that outdated law about having a different minimum wage should still be on the books, because what can happen is it can get abused by parents who are neglectful, and then the kid gets a job to feed themselves or something, and they don't get paid as much, so and then they don't focus on school and so on and so forth. You see where that goes. Minimum wage, if given today for rate of inflation, would actually be between $33 and $35 when it was originally created. And that's on top of the fact that we have automation and things, and people like Andrew Yang said that, UBI, Universal Basic Income, will be needed one day, because as we have made technology, and we make our lives easier, we make our jobs easier, you have generative AI who can take over analytical white-collar jobs. You have more automatic processing, whether it's going to be a robot that flips the burgers and then you're just hitting a pin pad at a McDonald's. So that should even be higher in some instances. You can't change it overnight. I would say right now, obviously, first tying it to inflation, whatever we choose, and finding out something that we can incrementally go up so that we don't put small businesses out, and then because a lot of the time healthcare takes up a lot of their costs on top of the wage.
Over to Harley. You have indicated that job creation is one of your priorities if elected. What specific ideas do you have about how to strengthen the economy by bringing more jobs to this district?
So, that's a weird one. So, if we're going to bring in more economy into northern Minnesota, what we need to do is make sure that we're prepared for it, whether it's making sure that we have solid education, we have housing, we have healthcare. I mean, that's really the three stool to being able to have a great economy. I mean, we have opportunities all over northern Minnesota. One of the things that I think we do have to look at in conjunction with everything else that we have in northern Minnesota is tourism. One of the things that happened in St. Paul is they paid off US Bank Stadium, and US Bank Stadium was paid off by the ETAB monies that came in from our local VFWs and nonprofit groups. I think that's an opportunity that we have to put some of that money back into rural Minnesota, into programs, whatever that looks like, into private partnerships, public partnerships to enhance tourism, whether it's hotels, whether it's complexes, YMCAs, whatever it takes to get people to do sports tourism and be able to travel into northern Minnesota to be able to be part of our economy is a unique situation that I think we have that we have not explored.
In this round, we talked about PFAS levels, the minimum wage, and job creation. We'll move on to our 30-second comments, and we'll start with Roger.
Can we get 30 seconds for each question? Jobs. There's 86,000 school trust acres that need to be traded, about 116,000. If we got it into state, that would support jobs. The ETABs, one of the things I'm concerned about the ETABs is the tribes made sure that they don't want the ETABs, so we have to work with the tribes to figure out how to work the ETABs. The helium fine that we have, we're going to get some jobs out of that. Just spoke to the Senator Hochschild and I had a meeting with him today. Positive, good things are going to happen.
I know I didn't say a number during minimum wage, so somewhere around between like $14, $15 for now and then incrementally increasing it. Over to the jobs, I believe that new age extraction, but also processing. We ship a lot of our waste rock over to North Dakota, where then they have the jobs to utilize that waste rock. I also see that co-ops and union-based jobs have been just slowly going down across the country, but in Minnesota, where we have some of the biggest co-ops in the United States, we should be supporting those efforts to rebuild that kind of business structure, balancing the tourism, aerospace, nuclear, things of that nature.
Yeah, the one last thing that I wanted to touch on jobs is making sure that we have adequate bonding bills. I mean, those bonding bills are what brings people into northern Minnesota to be able to do projects, and that's your Wolf Center, that's going to be roads, that's going to be anything that gets infrastructure, because infrastructure is actually the investment that draws other businesses to our area. I'll leave it at that because I think my time's up any second.
We have reached the final round of questions. Once again, each candidate will get a minute and a half to answer the question and then 30 seconds at the end for a comment. Rich, what assurances can you provide related to your positions and potential votes on issues related to women's health care and reproductive freedom?
So I believe people have a choice. Now, I know some people are worried that what Democrats are doing right now is going beyond the pale if you compare to, say, the European countries that still have restrictions on abortion, even though some people say 10 to 14 weeks, it's actually closer to 16 to 24 weeks. I don't think anybody's doing these things out of malice. Do you talk to anybody who's had an abortion? Nobody's doing this for the fun of it. It's kind of shocking that people would even suggest that it is. It's a hard, difficult decision. It's not an amusement park ride. Sorry to make light of it, but that's how I see it in my head a lot of the times, is how can we even be having this outdated discussion? Roe v. Wade, put restrictions on, or put restrictions later on that people are not aborting babies after they're born or whatnot. People have their choice. Mental health as well as physical health should be considered when talking about the safety of the woman who's having the child. And beyond that, as far as whether or not you can believe me on what I support in what I believe and how I'll vote down there is, again, I don't have a party over my head telling me how I have to vote. I have no dark money. I don't take any PAC money, anything of that nature. I'm here trying to be a genuine advocate for you. If my views on things end up changing, it is only because I've talked to the community and not just a few people on Twitter and had an honest discussion about what they want. But on this one, I don't see that changing. The majority of Americans, it's obvious what they want.
Harley, ATV use and the rights of those who utilize the outdoors for non-motorized recreation have often come into conflict. Would you favor legislative action to restrict ATVs from some trails, or do you have other ideas for how to balance the needs of both constituents?
That is not one that I've ever really thought of. It's never came up on the doors. That's not a conversation that I think I'm ready to answer. But you know what I can tell you, if I was elected and I'm down at St. Paul, those are conversations that I'm going to have between both groups. That's how you make decisions. You don't just listen to the left, you don't just listen to the right, you don't just listen to the motorized and the non-motorized. You have conversations and you work through the problems. And I don't know exactly how I would go with that specific thing, but the reality is that's the conversations that we need to have at the legislature, and that's why you meet with your constituents so that you get a good understanding of the situations that are before you.
Thank you. Roger, in the Ely area, significant community concern has been expressed about the development project at Silver Rapids. If elected, what would you do to make sure future development is environmentally sound and benefits the community and not just the developers?
The loaded question, does it help the developers, or is the developer trying to help the community? I look at Grand Ely Lodge when that was set up. I could look at go on the North Shore, look at all of those big things that were, resorts that were set up. When they first came, they were like, do we need this? And now they're known for it. So I look at our role as government to legislate that. I'm much more attuned to letting the local governments do that, like the county and the city. If they don't want that in their community, then don't put it there. Get it out of there. When we put the big stick in it, it starts to, it's not our place. It's not my place anyway. Would I listen if it was an egregious issue, a bad issue? Absolutely. And I don't know what that is. A majority of the people, this issue itself is a local issue. The DNR just got involved in it, and I'm meeting on Friday with DNR people to ask them what their role is going to be on this issue itself. So, and I talked to our senator the other day, and we were both like, why are we in this issue when it's a local issue? So it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Thank you. In this round, we talked about reproductive rights, regulation of ATV use, and constituent input to economic development projects. We'll start our 30-second follow-up with Rich.
So when it comes to involvement of the communities, when you're talking about public land use and corporations trying to, what they say, better the community, it's a balancing act at the end of the day. Corporations are out for the corporations, they're not people, and so the government's role is to protect the people. Yes, I do believe a lot of that in terms of like when it comes down to a single business being put into an area, does come down to the local government to address those concerns with the people, and then relay them and balance that act with the corporations.
Harley?
I just want to say that for the specific issue that Roger was brought up, I really think that we need to make sure that our local municipalities have rules and regulations in place to be able to make decisions themselves, have the local residents be able to put in their input and be able to have those conversations and make the decisions. I don't think that the state needs to, and Roger would have to agree with me on this. I mean, we've both been mayors. The local municipalities have to be able to make those decisions for themselves.
trying to decide, reproductive rights or something. The ATV use, there was an issue in the legislature. There was a bill going in that would ban all trail development within 100 feet or 300 feet, depending on who you spoke to, of any trail. Well, in northern Minnesota, you can't get 100 feet away from a wetland to develop anything. So it's kind of like, it was like, really? Are we going here already? So I'd like to work together to solve these issues.
Thank you, each of you. Each candidate will now have a minute and a half for a closing statement, and we'll begin with you, Roger Scrabble.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I appreciate you coming out. One of the things I appreciate about our district is people's honesty when I'm door knocking and when I'm communicating with you in the community. Be honest with me, I'm honest with you. My time as a legislator has been spent working across the aisle on issues that directly affect our district. I worked with Senator Hochschild a lot, Representative Liz Lagarde a lot, my different friends in the legislature, from co-signing bills that made it to become laws to authoring bills that went nowhere. It's been a learning experience I'll never forget. I've grown as a person and as a legislator. I hope to represent this community and the district once again, working with others to reduce local taxes, make life better, and to treat each other with dignity. In a time of hyper-partisanship, I have formed relationships with other legislators, so when our district needs bipartisan support, I can ask for it, and it will be heard. I cannot promise it will become law, but I know that I have the skills and the wherewithal for it to be acted on. I'm asking for your support and vote to re-elect me on November 5th. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Roger. Rich True, your closing statement?
So tonight you've heard me take a lot of approaches that seem middle of the road. I wouldn't call it centrist, I just call it thinking outside the box. I'm not here to provide something that looks like it's in between to appease both parties. No, I'm here with real, different solutions. I don't think of the political spectrum as a spectrum. It's not a binary solution. It is more of a gray aura. And most people, well over 52%, identify somewhere that is not directly with the party. The fact that one of the biggest talking points for candidates is that, oh, I'm here to be the bipartisan divide across the aisle. The fact that that is said so often shows you the honest truth that most people are independently somewhere in the middle. And that they have to say that is because they have to combat what's going on within their own political party. Beyond that, the reason, again, I run as a forward independent, when you see it on the ballot this November 5th, is because throughout my entire life, I was unaffiliated. When I was in California registered, if I ever did have to register, I just picked something and then I still voted however I wanted to in a primary. I chose which one, and then, however you decide to in the general election. My view on the party, the duopoly, is that one side will just throw money at a problem without actually addressing the root causes, and the other one will say yes or talk about it and not offer solutions. I'm here to talk about the different solutions, not give you a concrete answer, because guess what? Things are complicated. I think a lot of our legislators are very lazy and don't actually care about getting the work done and just want to get reelected at the end of the day. So to sum it up, if you would please, again, I hate to plug websites, www.richtruemn.com.
Thank you. Harley Droba?
Hi everybody, I'm Harley Droba. At the end of the day, I would really appreciate your support. I've done some great things in my community in the 5 years that I've been mayor, and all I want to do is make sure that we have opportunities for younger families to be able to grow and be part of what we've all had, a great experience in northern Minnesota. And that's going to come down to making sure that we have access to rural health care. It's going to mean that we have adequately funded ambulances, make sure that we have access to daycare, housing, and that's really what it all comes down to. I mean, I have a proven record, and I've been nothing but honest throughout this entire night. There's things I know, there's things I don't know, and I'm going to be honest with you the entire time. I would greatly appreciate you taking a look at my website, harleydroba.com, and I would greatly appreciate your support on November 5th, or before, because you have that opportunity. So, again, thank you guys all for coming out tonight. This is what democracy is all about. So thank you, and give yourselves a round of applause.
Well, thank you so much for the three of you for such good, honest answers. That all felt really respectful and, yeah, true to who you are. That was great. Thanks to the Rotary and the AAUW for hosting this tonight. Yeah. I was going to say VCC, but the actual name is Minnesota North College Vermilion Campus. Thank you to Vermilion for hosting this. And we appreciate all of you for coming. This is where the rubber meets the road. These are the people you're going to run into, you know, at breakfast at Britain's or whatever. These are the people you have real direct access to, no matter, you know, who wins. And yeah, I encourage you to have conversations with each other after this. Maybe find a person that you're pretty sure you disagree with and go have a beer or something. That tends to be a really good way to sum these things up. So thanks again. Thanks for our questioners and our timers. And again, thanks to the candidates. Oh yeah, thanks to the camera. Yep. So have a great night. Vote in November. Thanks.